Hey guys, today we're going to talk about something political, and I'm going to try to talk about it, a political thing, without being too political, if that makes sense. I'm not really going to try to take one side or the other. If it is important to you, you may want to know that I'm not personally a super far leftist or a super far rightist. I tend to view politics based on each individual issue, and some left issues I support and some right issues I support. I believe in thinking individually. I don't think that we should all, I'm sure there are some people out there who naturally believe that every single left issue is something that they can stand for, or on the opposite, there are some people who whom naturally envelops every single right issue, right? But I think that the more common thing, if people really think about issue per issue, like if you weren't raised in a society where someone told you that, oh, this issue is a left issue, Johnny, and Johnny, this issue is a right issue. So, over here we believe this, and over here we believe that. If no one ever told you this, you may not actually assign certain issues to one side or the other. Does that make sense? And if that was the case, if you were just brought upon to an alien planet where there were, say, some other issues, like political issues, and they listed them in front of you, and they said, okay, can you guess which side wearing a mask goes to, or which side animal rights goes to, or which side abortion, um, you may be hard pressed to say, oh, that's obviously a left issue, or that's obviously a right issue, right? And um, I think that very often, the left or the right co-ops political issues and brings them to their side of the team for reasons that aren't really the hallmark concepts of what makes them the right or left. I think sometimes issues just tend to get brought into one side or the other for just because. I think COVID's a good example of this, because if you think about like hippies in the 70s, like some very far left people in the 70s, hippies like free love, do whatever you want, like they don't care if they're dirty, like F you government, I'll wear whatever I want, who cares about hygiene, free love, like embrace everybody, love, like you. And then you transported to the year 2020, and they presented you with like the whole mask option and debate and vaccines, right? You might not think that the left would be the side that says, you know what, if you don't wear a mask and if you don't vax up, then we don't accept you, and in fact we're going to be super intolerant of you and try to get you canceled and so forth. Okay, and that's not just to, and this could go for either way depending on the topic. Okay, I'm not saying one way or the other here. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting, the way tides turn. So something interesting I just saw in the news, people are storming the Trump Tower and protesting in the Trump Tower with their signs. I actually haven't even looked deep enough into it to know what exactly they're I have an idea of what they're protesting. I could look right now, but it doesn't even matter, because that's not what this video is about. I just want to talk today about the issue of free speech and lines, when do we take it too far? Can you take it too far? And the importance of the right to protest. Like, we all have the right to protest. We're giving certain confines of where we're supposed to protest. It's supposed to be in certain areas. You can't just go into like a stranger's house, for example, at 3 a.m. You can't barge in with 30 people into a stranger's house at 3 a.m. uninvited and then protest in their living room against whatever they're standing for, right? Like, that's illegal. Like, you would go to jail for that, for breaking and entering, invasion of privacy. But we are, and very important. I grew up on like a lot of very like punk rock, anti-establishment music, so I'm very in tune and keen on the idea of protesting. So I don't condemn people for wanting to protest. But it's just it's always very interesting to see whether it's the left or right protest. It's very endearing in certain ways. Like if you just take the topic, whatever they're protesting, just out of the equation, right? Just the fact that someone is so into something that they believe in it, right? It's a very human thing. They believe in something so much that they're going to take time out of their day, maybe even risk getting in trouble with the law, or maybe even risk their neighbor, you know, hating them or something like that. And they're going to stand up for what they believe and picket or whatever they're going to do. And I think this is a very human thing and a very beautiful thing. But of course, there's always double-edged swords involved with every topic, right? Of course, you can take anything too far. You can drink too much water. You can have too much sex. You can drink too much beer. You can probably also protest in a fashion that's not appropriate. Now, I haven't really looked into this Trump Tower thing too much. I just wanted to talk about the topic of protesting. It's very, I mean, if you're a person who supports this particular protest, you look at this and you think, heck yes, like get him, stick it to the man, right in the foyer of the Trump Tower, and it's definitely working to get media attention regardless. But I always wonder with these sorts of protests, whether it's this Trump Tower protest or Occupy Wall Street, or let's say a right protest like the Tea Party, or a anti-abortion rally or something like that. I always wonder, like, how many people who are undecided or people who disagree with whatever it is they're protesting see these kinds of protests on television, and then they're sitting there in the living room with their remote and they see this and they go, oh, like I'm a changed person. After seeing this protest, now all of my life views are changed. Now I'm sure there are people out there, like the undecideds, who are trying to make up their mind, and they see maybe the passion of these people protesting, and they change their view, maybe partly due to it, but I don't think it's very many. I mean, I think one of the best ways, it's such a tricky topic. I think one of the best ways to really change someone's mind, no matter what the topic is, I mean, how many people's minds are really changed with someone who disagrees with you coming up to you and they're yelling at you, they're trying to get you fired, they're facing you with vitriol and aggression and condemning you. I mean, maybe some people their minds are changed by this through fear or whatever, but I think very often the more boring route is more effective when it comes to changing somebody's mind, which is confronting somebody as a human, trying to find the places where you agree, the things you have in common with, what do we all have in common here in America? What do we all have in common as humans? I mean, I could argue that it's the yearning to have, family, caring for your family, caring for your children, right? That's a very caring for your children, wanting to be healthy, wanting to be prosperous. I think these are all things that everyone could pretty much agree on, right? I mean, maybe you could think of some other things, but I think we all sort of start from the same place. Like, I know that there are people who are born with horrible complications mentally, and maybe their circuits are just crossed, and they're born an angry sociopath, and they can't help but grow up to be like a murderer or something crazy like this, right? There are definitely those people, but I'd say the average person who is born with a sane mind, we all typically kind of come from the same place. So it's always been fascinating to me. What is it that makes, someone turn into a horrible person, a mass murderer, or like a Hitler, like this kind of person? It's always very fascinating. Like what road that person took. What did it look like? Like, what is it that makes people desensitized into doing dastardly things that we only can help but fathom what it would be like to be like in history books. So back to the, the protest today. There's all kinds of protests going on right now. I think even just yesterday there was fire bombings on multiple like Tesla cars and trucks. Which is interesting because only just a couple years ago, typically if you saw a Tesla driver, you'd consider them a left person, like because they were the first popular electric car. It's energy, it's a green car. Only until very recently, people are being condemned for having Tesla cars. So it's just funny to me that the left is potentially and most likely bombing people's cars of people who are on their side. It's like it's only been such a short amount of time. It's very unlikely that someone who disagrees with Elon or Trump has had enough time to switch out their Tesla car and then get a different car, even if that's something that you would consider something that's reasonable and necessary. Maybe some people just want to drive cars to drive cars. Maybe they just like the look of the Cybertruck or what have you. But it's very interesting to see these headlines. I myself, I find politics very fascinating and interesting just as an outsider looking in. Like, I don't really feel a super strong aversion to either side. I mean, I can see why people do have aversions, but I just, I just like to see it as a spectacle, and I see it very akin to, the way people treat sports and picking teams, and it's very human. It's very tough. I feel like we should, for lack of a better word, all get along, like this kind of thing. Like that's what we want overall. That's what we feel anyways. But it's very hard not to do that when you are raised in a family and your whole life, that's your identity. Those are all of the beliefs and the lens through which you see all of reality. And some people take it way more to heart. I don't know. It's very interesting. When I talk to my older friends and acquaintances who are, say, 50 years old or older, 70 years old, they all tell me that back in their day, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, yes, politics were definitely very charged. Of course, if you think about Vietnam, again, the hippies, all of these different things, of course, there were definitely things where politics were very charged, very heated. But there's something different that's going on today where it's another even different level of flamboyantness and toxicity that's going on. People are believing that, maybe if my own family, my own parent or brother don't see life through the same political lens as me, then that's reason to not see them at, the dinner table or on holidays. So a lot of people are seeing things that way. Whereas back in the old timers days, you know what I mean? Back in, 50 years ago, it was far less common. I'm sure it still happened, but it was far less common for people to, be so enveloped in it. And I can't help but think, of course, it's social media and things like this that are taking a big hand in this. It's with social media, it's so much easier for people to take agency and assign themselves a team. You literally have your pictures up with your flags or your logos, and you're making your statements online saying this is this. It's almost video gameized, right? Everything is kind of video gameized. I'm sure there's a better term for it, but social media is almost like a video game for people where but it's even more intimate because it's their life, it's their identity. People get very, very attached to their beliefs, and it's very hard for people to step outside of their identity, what they see themselves as, like that's the most important thing to them. To change minds of people these days seems very difficult for a lot of people. So I mean, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. I was just spurred by the uh, all of the events today. I find it very fascinating. I kind of see it as, I mean, I take pride in the fact that I'm able to talk to people of all different values. And in fact, actually go out of my way to really make it a point to be able to talk to people who I disagree with sternly. Like the more outlandish thing you think, like say maybe you think that the earth is flat. I don't think the earth is flat. That seems really just crazy to me. But when I talk to people who think the earth is flat, I really give them I lend them my ear and I just want to hear them out because I'm so interested. Like if I think this way so passionately and I'm so sure of myself and you are so sure of yourself that the earth is flat, I'm super interested. Just, you know, what is it? Like tell me like try to shine your light of perspective into my realm so I can kind of see where you're coming from. I'll try it on. I'll put that hat on, that ideological hat on. I'll try it on for size. And then I'll probably take it off immediately after the conversation. But I at least want to see where you're coming from. I think it's just very interesting. Now I know not everyone is that way, and I don't think that everyone has to be that way. That's just me. But I don't know. Very very crazy times we're in. Social media is wild. You got to be careful on how you use it. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm just going to end the video there. Food for thought.